debating a spending bill to keep the government funded past the end of this month. There are ongoing negotiations to help provide additional relief to those most affected by the coronavirus. With the sad news of the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there's now a Supreme Court vacancy as well. As momentous as these issues are, we ought not miss what's happening on the streets of America, though, as too many in Washington missed for years, as Americans were dying by the thousands as a result of the opioid epidemic that hit this country, from prescription pills to heroin to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Now, in recent years, Washington's gotten the news, and we've taken action to try to stem the tide of drug overdoses around our country. But the fight continues. So I want to call the Senate and the nation's attention to a new threat. Isotoniazine is harder to pronounce than fentanyl, but it is equally deadly. It will kill you in a heartbeat, and it also comes from China. Reports of ISO, as this hard-to-pronounce drug is often called on the street, are still scattered. A shipment was seized in Canada early last year. Now it's been popping up in Europe, in countries as far-flung as Belgium, Estonia, Germany, Latvia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. And at about the same time, ISO has found its way to America as well. It's turned up in both pill and powder form, seemingly shipped in concentrated small quantities that escape detection too often. Once it's here, it's usually cut with other drugs, like heroin and cocaine, to make them more powerful and much more deadly. An unsuspecting drug user can inject a tainted dose or take a counterfeit prescription pill and be dead within minutes. ISO is just like fentanyl in that regard. According to the Drug Enforcement Agency, ISO is confirmed to have killed at least 18 Americans in 4 different states and has been encountered in at least 48 confirmed incidents across 9 states. However, it's likely killed many more. We don't know for sure because tests for ISO still are not widely available given its novelty. And overdose deaths due to a cocktail of ISO mixed with heroin, cocaine, or other drugs may be inadvertently attributed only to the known substance. What we do know is that ISO is just the latest weapon of Chinese drug dealers in their opium war against America. First, they developed designer fentanyl analogs, which have killed and continue to kill Americans by the thousands. However, we've taken strong action against fentanyl. Last year, we passed my legislation, the Fentanyl Sanctions Act, to punish Chinese drug dealers. And the president, equally importantly, pressured China's leaders to crack down on underground drug labs in their own country, which sent 9 fentanyl smugglers to prison. These efforts have made a difference, but the fight is not over. China's drug dealers have developed a new poison to send to America. ISO has no recognized medical or industrial use. It is nothing more and nothing less than a way to profit off of addiction and death. These Chinese drug dealers want ISO to be the new fentanyl. So we have to take strong action to make sure they fail before more Americans are killed. The DEA has already taken swift action by classifying ISO as a Schedule I controlled substance, its most restrictive classification. But this is only a temporary measure that will last 2 years at most. Congress should therefore act to ensure ISO stays on that list for good. That's why I'm introducing legislation to permanently classify ISO as a Schedule I controlled substance. This will ensure ISO receives the strictest regulations under our drug laws. And it will help our brave drug enforcement agents keep this deadly drug off of our streets. Furthermore, I call upon the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party to crack down on the production of ISO in the Chinese mainland. If the leaders of the party wish to reduce tensions, if they wish to improve relations, they ought not to allow their own criminals to manufacture drugs with no legitimate purpose, specifically designed for smuggling into America to poison our citizens. I urge my colleagues in the administration to join in this effort to stop ISO before it spreads even further. This drug has already killed too many of our fellow citizens. We need to stop it before it kills even more. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from New Jersey.
Madam President, our nation has suffered a historic loss in the passing of legal giant Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I fear the rush to replace her, with just 44 days left before the next presidential election, will have grave consequences for the lives of millions of Americans. As tempting as it is, I'm not here today to talk about the stunning hypocrisy of my Republican colleagues who once opposed filling any Supreme Court vacancy during a presidential election year, now changing the reasons for doing so like a willow in the wind. Though, make no mistake, their willingness to abandon their word in the naked pursuit of power and deny the American people a voice in this process is truly stunning. Today, I want to talk about the consequences of their hypocrisy, not for our process here in the Senate, but rather for the lives and livelihoods of millions of families across this nation. Everything Americans care about and depend on is on the line, starting first and foremost with their health care. President Trump has already declared that whoever his nominee is, that his nominee to the court will, quote, vote to terminate the Affordable Care Act and reverse Roe versus Wade. The Trump administration is closer than ever to tearing health care away from millions of people by overturning the law that gave it to them in the first place. And it's especially outrageous to see the administration threaten the health care of millions of Americans at this perilous moment in our history with nothing, by the way, to replace it. Since the passage of the Affordable Care Act, they have said they had a better plan. Well, now 11 years later or so, maybe almost 12 years, we have yet to see what that plan is. We're in the midst of a deadly, once-in-a-century pandemic. A staggering 200,000 Americans, fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers, dear friends and beloved grandparents are gone forever. Meanwhile, millions of people nationwide are infected with the coronavirus. And to this day, many survivors of COVID-19 are grappling with lasting healthcare challenges, from chronic shortness of breath to lifelong scar tissue in their lungs. We are still learning about the long-term health impacts of contracting COVID-19, but here's one thing we do know. Every single one of these survivors now has a pre-existing condition that makes them vulnerable to insurance company discrimination without the protections guaranteed by the Affordable Care Act. That's in addition to the estimated 135 million Americans who already live with common pre-existing conditions like chronic asthma, diabetes, and high blood pressure, to mention a few. Remember what it was like before the Affordable Care Act? A health insurance company could refuse to cover you or provide your care or even kick you off your plan due to your medical history. A child born at birth with a birth defect couldn't get health insurance. The husband who had a heart attack couldn't get health insurance. A woman with cervical cancer couldn't get health insurance afterwards, a pre-existing condition. We don't want to go back to those days, Madam President. But that's exactly what the Trump administration will take us should they prevail at the Supreme Court, as this case is pending before the Supreme Court. Now, despite what they say, the Republican mission has been clear for a decade: to kill the Affordable Care Act, to strip away health care for millions of Americans, all the while lying about how they will protect individuals with pre-existing conditions. It's shameful. Just as dangerous is the prospect of a Supreme Court that will overturn Roe versus Wade and roll back the reproductive rights of women. That's what's at stake with this Supreme Court seat: the basic principle that women have a right to make their own private medical decisions. The American people overwhelmingly believe that women, not the government, should be allowed to decide when they have children. And there's no question that the right to choose is inseparable from the past half a century of progress achieved for women's equality in the United States. It's that progress that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg devoted her entire life's work to advancing: the right of women to pursue their own destinies with full equality under the law. And it's not just health care that's on the line, it's our voting rights, our civil rights, workers' rights, immigrant rights, LGBTQ rights as well. And more than that, it's the right of the American people to see their elected representatives enact the kind of policies they support, like bold action on climate change, without corporate-backed challenges at the Supreme Court undoing their wishes. Madam President, a Supreme Court nominee has never been confirmed this close to a presidential election. Americans are already voting as we speak. Should my colleagues in the majority abandon all their prior commitments and deny the American people the opportunity to make their voice heard, I fear we could do lasting damage to the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. This is an institution that rests on the trust and reverence of the American people. Losing that trust and reverence is dangerous, It's dangerous for millions of people who will lose the Affordable Care Act protections. It's dangerous for the women who could lose their right to choose, and all of us who do not want to turn back a half a century of progress. It's dangerous for our economy at a time when American workers and consumers find themselves at the mercy of corporations that have grown larger and more powerful than at any other time since the Gilded Age. It's dangerous for the future of our planet and safety of our climate at a time when the West is burning, seas are rising, and the earth is warming faster than ever before. And quite frankly, it's dangerous for our democracy. We owe the American people a voice in a decision that will shape the course of history for generations. And we owe the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her seat on the Supreme Court more than just another political paragraph. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.